How could a leader once so revered ignite a decade-long turmoil that would leave millions dead and a nation fractured? In the mid-20th century, China found itself at the precipice of a seismic shift. The year was 1966, and Mao Zedong, standing on shaky ground after the catastrophic Great Leap Forward, initiated what would come to be known as the Cultural Revolution. A massive socio-political movement, its roots were buried deep in the soil of fear and the need to rekindle the dying embers of the communist spirit. Mao, feeling his grip on power slipping, sought to purge the nation of any perceived infiltrators and dissenters. His aim was twofold: to consolidate his power and to reignite the fervor of communism. The political landscape was a tinderbox primed and ready for the spark Mao was all too willing to provide. And thus, the stage was set for a decade of upheaval. The Cultural Revolution had begun. With the revolution set in motion, a group of zealous youths rose to prominence, the Red Guard. These impassioned young individuals, fueled by Mao's fiery rhetoric and promises of a pure communist society, began to reshape the very fabric of Chinese culture. Schools were shut down, deemed breeding grounds for bourgeois thinking, and replaced with ideological indoctrination sessions. Religious places weren't spared either. Temples, churches, mosques, the Red Guard viewed them as vestiges of the old order that needed to be purged. They ransacked these sacred places, tearing down symbols of faith and replacing them with images of Mao, the one true deity in their eyes. The purge didn't stop there. Party officials, intellectuals, anyone perceived as an enemy of Mao's vision was fair game. Many were publicly humiliated, beaten, and even killed. The Red Guard, armed with Mao's little red book, his collection of speeches and writings, became the judge, jury, and executioner. Western art and entertainment, seen as a corrupting influence, were also banned. Works by William Shakespeare, once revered, were now deemed too bourgeois, too Western, and thus were systematically removed from libraries and burned. The Red Guard, armed with Mao's little red book, became the vanguard of the revolution, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. As the fires of the revolution burned bright, the nation plunged into chaos, but all fires, however fierce, eventually burn out. The aftermath of the Cultural Revolution was a devastating spectacle. China's economy was in ruins, the fabric of society was torn apart, and the country was left in a state of social and political turmoil. The once flourishing industries were now stagnant, production was at a standstill, and the nation was on the brink of economic collapse. The impact on society was even graver. The revolution had claimed the lives of up to 2 million people. Some were party officials, some were intellectuals, and some were ordinary folk who had been caught in the crossfire of the revolution. They were all victims of the Red Guard's merciless purge of perceived enemies of Mao's vision. In addition to the massive death toll, the revolution displaced around 20 million people. They were forced to flee their homes, their cities, and their country to escape the carnage Chairman Mao had instigated. Families were torn apart, lives were uprooted, and a generation was scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. The revolution also left a deep cultural scar. Art, literature, and music that were deemed too Western were banned, including works by William Shakespeare. The cultural landscape of China was fundamentally altered, and the effects of this cultural purge are still felt today. The Cultural Revolution came to an end in 1976, but not before it had left a profound and lasting impact on China. It was in this year that Chairman Mao, the architect of the revolution, passed away. His death marked the end of a decade of turmoil, a decade that had reshaped China and its people. With the passing of Chairman Mao, the curtain fell on the Cultural Revolution, a decade of turmoil that reshaped China and left an indelible mark on its history. In the decade that was the Cultural Revolution, China experienced turmoil unlike any other in its history. Mao Zedong launched this campaign, giving rise to the Red Guard, a youthful force that wreaked havoc on society, economy, and culture. Intellectuals were persecuted, religious sites desecrated, and Western art condemned. This relentless pursuit of Mao's vision ended only with his death in 1976. A chapter of history that serves as a stark reminder of the power of ideology and the price a nation can pay when it is wielded without restraint.